All right, this lesson is going to be about two things. First, I want to introduce you to this website called Photopea. Photopea, as some people call it, but I like Photopea better. And this is a free online version of Photoshop. Of course, it doesn't have all of the features and it doesn't look as nice, but it is free and it is quite a powerful resource, even though it is hosted in the web. So it's a cloud-based photo editing software similar to Photoshop. So you'll notice a lot of these tools look similar, and there's a lot of similar features, and the basic layout of the program is very similar. So we're going to get started, and this will be just an introduction to this website, as well as we're going to learn a couple new concepts today. So first off, I've provided a couple images that you'll need to download in Google Classroom. And the one you'll want to open is the magazine cover. So I'm going to go to File, and after you've downloaded it, you'll want to go to Open, and then find that magazine file and open it here. This will be kind of the canvas that we'll use for our lesson today. And what I liked about this was first, we've learned about text in the last couple weeks. And this magazine cover is a good example of how to use images and text together. There's several different layering effects going on here. You'll notice there's an image here that it looks like the background is still intact. So you can see Harry is sitting on some sort of step or something, and they seem to be in a room somewhere. There's a wall behind them. And then in between their heads and the background is the title for the magazine. So it seems as though this somehow the text got into the picture, placed behind their heads but in front of the wall. So we're going to talk about that effect and try to recreate that with our own image. And then we're going to just take a look at the different shapes and things, ways to make text stand out in a graphic environment like this magazine. So we have our workspace here. We've opened an image. Next thing we want to do is import an image into an existing project. So I'm going to go up to File again. This time I'm going to choose Open and Place. And I'm going to use this Harry and Meghan photo. I just decided to stick with the theme here. So automatically it opens and gets placed in here, and it's asking me to resize it or place it in a different spot. So I have the option to resize it. I'm going to go ahead and do that, make it larger. Anytime you're resizing an image, you want to make sure that you keep the aspect ratio, the height and width settings. So to do that, while you're resizing, you'll hold down the Shift key. And that will retain the aspect ratio as you're resizing it. So I'm going to make it nice and large here. And then scooch it over. So maybe this might be a little bit too large. And this image didn't have a lot of background to work with, but it'll be enough for us to get an idea of what's going on here. Let's try to do this. All right. So once you're happy with the size, you're going to click the check mark, and now it's officially placed in your project. So to get this effect, what we need to do is we're going to retain the original image, and then we're going to make a copy of that. So we want to duplicate a layer. So we're going to right click and select duplicate layer. And I'm going to go ahead and hide the other layers so we can just focus on this for a while. And we're going to use the quick selection tool. And if I try to do this, I'm going to get a warning. For some reason in Photopea, your images have to be rasterized before you can make a selection. So I'm going to click OK. It's going to automatically rasterize it for me. And now I'm going to be able to select. Try to be careful so I don't waste a lot of time doing this. And there we go. We got quite a bit selected. That's good. Missing just a little piece of his head up here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. So the shortcuts also work in this program. I'm using Control and Spacebar to temporarily grab the zoom tool and zoom into this area up here. I'm going to try to grab a little bit more of this. So that didn't work out very well. Really wants to grab a lot. So what I'm going to do is try to use a different selection tool. Let's just use the lasso tool. Again, I know you guys know how to select things, so this lesson isn't mainly about that. So I'm going to go ahead and add to the selection. So this is a new selection. This would be add. They're calling it unite. So when I add to this existing selection, I'm going to just try to grab some of this hair up here. There we go. That's good enough. If I was in Photoshop, there'd be a lot more power to what I'm doing. It seems like this is not as powerful in selecting things, but it can get the job done. All right, I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. And since I have this selected, I want to just hide the background by creating a mask. So again, I'm going to click here. So I've successfully hidden the background there. I'm going to go ahead and reveal the previous one. So the one with the background. So I have the layer on top without the background, and then I have the one underneath it with the background. So in between those two layers, I'm going to place a text layer. So go ahead and grab my text tool here. And I know the size is going to need to be fairly large. Let's just try something like 78. I'm going to click in here. Whoops. There we go. So I need to type something. Let's type people. All right, so I just typed it in, and obviously it still needs to be larger. So I'm going to double click the icon for the text to select the text quickly. Then I'm going to change the size. So this works the same as Photoshop. For most of their settings, you have the option to scrub. So I'm going to click where it says the word size and scrub to the right to increase the size. Let's make it a little bit larger. Then I'm going to move it a little bit lower here. You can also increase the size simply by resizing it. There we go. And then I'm going to deselect. Select something else. All right, so that's the basic concept behind it. So we have now an image and then a text underneath that image where the background has been removed, and the exact same image behind it. So it looks like it's layered as though the text is actually in the image somehow. So that is a text effect that you'll see used a lot in graphic design. It kind of makes the text more a part of the actual image. All right, so let's take a look at the magazine again. I'm going to hide these layers just for a moment. All right, so this next thing here that I wanted to show you is this example of Jane Fonda here. This is another effect that you'll see used a lot in photographs. So we have a shape here, and it seems as though Jane's head is kind of popping out of the shape. So it's a similar effect, but this time that you can use a shape to define the space. So that's what I'm going to use here to fill in the gap. So let's go ahead and reveal these things here. So I have a gap here. What I'm going to do is just create a shape. So I'm going to use the shape tool. I'm just going to use a regular rectangle tool. Create a shape to fill in this gap. Ooh. All right, so I have a shape here, and I want it to be actually underneath the text. And I want that to be more of a shade of green to kind of blend in with the background. So right now I have this red color, so I need to change that. And let's see if I can choose a color here. Let's use that color. And I'm purposely going to make this shape a little bit bigger. To fill in that gap. And then I'm also actually, let's go ahead and make it a little bit larger. And then I'm going to actually make a mask and apply a gradient so it kind of fades in to that area. So I'm painting on the mask. I'm going to use the gradient tool, and I want my transition to be black to white. So make sure these colors are set that way. If you click on the D, that's the default color scheme. And then you have these arrow buttons to reverse the scheme. So we're going to try it this way, the default way, and see if this works. So on the mask, I'm going to create a transition here. So that was the opposite way that I wanted it to go. So I can either click in the opposite direction, so start at the top and then drag down, or I can reverse the scheme if I want to go ahead and click down and then drag up. So I'll reverse that. So now I'm going from down here to up here. There we go. So it just kind of blends in a little bit better, keeping the background. And let's go ahead and just do a couple effects on the actual text itself. So a lot of times you'll see text with an outline, and that in Photoshop is called stroke. So we're going to go click on the effects button and add a stroke to our text. So immediately you can see there's a stroke effect applied. You can change the size to make it thicker. And you can choose to position the stroke on the outside of the text or the inside. So obviously if it gets too large, it just replaces the original color. The stroke is just too large. So with this one, I'll want to go with an outside stroke. And then usually the blend mode, normal, and opacity is what you're going to want to use here. And then you can change the fill color if you want a different color scheme. All right, there's that. And then you'll see in the magazine shapes used to kind of block off certain sections. So right here, there's a block of text, and there's this white line, which is actually a long rectangle. You'll see there's a circle here and some text on it. And then here's some text with some just block rectangles behind it to make the text stand out. So that's another way to kind of graphically divide up your space and make the text visible. So if this text did not have this background, it wouldn't stand out as much. So that's one of the ways to make text stand out, is to put a background behind it. Same thing with this here. So in this assignment, I'm just going to go ahead and explain it. I don't want you to take too much time. I'm not expecting this to be an entire magazine cover. But what I would like you to do is try to emulate some of the things you're seeing in this magazine. You're going to choose your own subject. So it could be somebody famous that you like, or a cartoon character, or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. And what I'm expecting to see on here is the effect that I showed, where the subject is imported on its own background. So for example, let's show what we started with. So you'll have an image, and then what you'll want to do is decide what portion of this image do you want to remove the background and place something behind it. So you'll want to duplicate the layer first. So that's what I did here. I have this original that I'm going to retain. Then I duplicated that layer, which is this layer here. Then I selected the part, I selected the part that I want to keep, which is actually all of this image and the lower portion of the background. And then I created a mask, which hides the rest of it. So the rest of it behind there is transparent, which means I can then add something behind. So this is the effect that we're trying to get. And then you just reveal the original, and it makes it look like that text was placed inside the image somehow. That is the effect that I'm looking for in this project. So I want you to show me that you understand the concept by importing an image, duplicating it, removing the background on one of them, and then placing text in between that layer. So I have this layer here, and I placed the text here. Now I added this extra complication with the shape. You don't have to do that. And then you're going to just have the original behind it. So those are the 3 layers. So that is step number 1. And the second step I want you to do is take a look at this magazine example. And I'm just going to allow you to have some creative freedom. You can import some other images, like there's this guy here. You can make some shapes and then put text layers on top of them. Here's a block of text here. And obviously there's a title for the magazine that's larger, and then kind of a subtitle here. So let me just be specific in what I would like to see. First, I'd like you to have a title for the magazine that is in between the two images. Then I want you to create a title for your magazine. Would be in larger text. You don't need to necessarily worry about the subtitle, but if you'd like to include one, you can. Then I'd like you to place a couple more images in here and then create kind of vignette features for those images. So you can do that by just leaving the image in there cropped and then add some text underneath, or create a block shape that defines a new space like this one here, and then add some text. So let's just say I want 2 additional features. It could be a small guy up here with a little bit of text next to it, and an image. I'd also include a shape being a feature as well. So I just want to kind of expand our use of text and in a more creative way, just using this magazine as sort of inspiration. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Email me if you have any questions.